Alright, welcome to Comic Book Wednesdays, everybody. This is a weekly series where we talk about comic books. However, this week we're doing something a little different. We're your hosts. I'm Ian.
And I'm Shane.
And today we have two guests. We got our longtime listener, Zach, and our other longtime listener, Jazzy.
What's going on?
What's going on, everybody?
So, I'm sure you guys are noticing we're missing Al tonight, but he'll be back next week for our regular scheduled programming. So tonight we're doing something a little different. Like I was saying, we are talking about our top 10 favorite video games all time. Doesn't matter what console, doesn't matter what type of game. It's all time our favorite top 10. And of course, one of my least favorite video games just shit the bed. I just got kicked. But with that said, I was inspired by God of War Ragnarok to do this list, not by Call of Duty. So, all right. Shane, why don't you start us off a little bit? Why don't you give us?
Sure.
You start with 10 and kind of go from there. Maybe do like 9 and 8 as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Happy to. All right. So for my number 10, I have Final Fantasy Dirge of Cerberus. This was a PS2 game where you got to play as a character named Vincent Valentine. This was in the Final Fantasy VII. If you've played that game, you'll be familiar with him. He's the only one to use a gun because he's just a badass. It was a great story, and it was really interesting, me kind of dipping my toes into the Final Fantasy world. And this might be sacrilege to a lot of gamers, but I played that before I played 7. I still haven't played 7. I'm working on it. And it was the first Final Fantasy game I ever completed.
It's funny you said it. I've never finished a Final Fantasy game.
Oh, thank God, I'm not alone.
I had fun with every single one I've played. I just never finished them. And I'm sure this Jazzy's like rolling over in his chair.
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry.
I couldn't agree. I know, but at the same time, I couldn't agree more. Like, there's so many of them that you get so close, but you just never finish.
I've never touched one of them either. So,
if it helps appease the powers that be, I'm currently working on Crisis Core for the PS5, and after that, I'm going to move on to Final Fantasy VII.
I got a question on that. Maybe this is more oriented towards Jazzy. Crisis Core, how much is that required for 7?
I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Was it one you've never played?
I have not played that one, no.
Okay.
I'm almost done 7 itself, and then I'll kind of explore after that.
Okay. What do you got next on your list, Shane?
Yeah, number 9, I have Jak 3 of the Jak and Dexter series.
ooh, that's a good game.
Good
Very
game.
good.
I didn't even think of that one.
I went back to Jak and Dexter so many times before I ever got a PS3, and just the sheer amount of things you could do once you beat the game, and like, who doesn't like the futuristic flying cars?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, Jak 3 was such a step up from Jak 2, and Jak 2 was already a good game.
Yeah, I played Jak 2, borrowing it from my cousins whenever we went to like house sit because they had pets. And whenever we went over there, I would always play Jak 2. And so when Jak 3 came out, I was like, yes, I'm snagging this.
Yeah, I didn't own Jak 2, but we've had Jak 3.
I was gonna say I remember playing that when we were younger, especially or mostly just watching Ian as we were growing up playing that game, and I just would vaguely. I mean, I would play it here and there when he would, walk away or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Making me sound like a tyrant.
it was definitely a good game. Just fun ripping around on those flying cars, like you said, and like maybe terrorizing some local civilians through the town and getting in trouble. That was always fun.
And then next on my list, I have Kingdom Hearts 2.
Okay.
I added that one on there just because, like, it was such a nice improvement from Chain of Memories and from number 1. The first game that they had the reaction commands, I really felt like the story was good. Because, I mean, in the first one, it was very much oh, friends are my power, Disney. And then, like, that's as far as it went. And, like, as a kid, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then when 2 came out, it was like, oh, this is a little bit more edgy. This is a little bit more, like, evilness going on. This is pretty interesting with the controls and how the battle works and all that.
I completely agree with you. That it's on my list. Well, I'll get to it eventually. But it's it's on my list for tonight. Not as far as like gaming wise. I played that game to hell, But yeah, I mean, so let's switch gears. So Jazzy, why don't you give us your 10th pick there?
Yeah, so I figure I had to fit this game on there, only because like I've played it so many times, and it's going back to my Sega Genesis days. It was a game called Shining Force 2.
I've heard of it. I've never played it.
Yeah,
I've never heard of this.
it's like a great role play game where you basically you find out that you're just like a student in this school, and you have a couple of other classmates that are with you, and some type of evil like hits the town that you guys are living in, and your teacher that you have conveniently seems to be this wizard that seems to know exactly what's going on. So you're like sent on this mission to go help your town and help everybody else, and you start off as a group of 3, and you just pick up different warriors to play as you go around, and I believe you can get up to a team of 12. So you really pick up a lot of people, and you get to kind of change them around. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
And that was on the Genesis?
It was on the Genesis, yes.
Wow.
Highly recommend. I remember a friend of mine let me play the first one, like when I was a child, and I loved it so much. And I remember I went out and found that they had a second one, so I just jumped right to that, and it was so good. So classic that I think I have it as like a game that I can play on my phone now.
Ooh, there's a phone port. I might pick it up.
Cool.
Yeah, please text me the name. I'd love to check that out.
Yeah. Shining Force 2. Very good. I highly recommend.
I'll get you
The next one that I have on my list is actually going to be Tony Hawk Pro Skater number 2.
Oh,
good one,
what
good
a
one,
good
good
pick.
one.
I didn't
That's
even
a
think
good
of
one.
those.
Yeah. So
Classic
Tony Hawk
soundtrack.
is an absolute, like, I don't think there's anybody you know that hasn't played a Tony Hawk game. And I remember just the second version of that being just so much better than the first. Music was great. Everything that you wanted to do customization wise was there. So I have to add that one on on my list here as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. And you have number 8?
My number 8 is actually going to go. I'm going to jump another console here. I'm going with the Game Boy, and I'm going with Pokemon Yellow.
You're
So
speaking to my soul.
yeah, my original like introductory to Pokemon was I think Red, the original like Charizard game, and I remember once the Yellow came out, I was able to get all those like original Pokemon. You got Charmander, you got Squirtle, you got Bulbasaur, and then you got Pikachu. And I remember that was the first game where I like really beat the entire thing and tried to fill my entire Pokedex. So that game has to be in my top 10.
I respect that.
Absolutely. Oh my god, such a good game.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go last, Zach. So if you want to talk about your 10 now.
Yes, mine are a little bit. My first 3 here are definitely some throwbacks. So now for my first one, it's kind of more than just a single game. For me, I really just got into playing some video games like with like a storyline, stuff like that. Growing up, I did a lot of like Ian could attest to it. I've done a lot of gaming for like with sports games and stuff like that. So number 10, I have the NHL installments because they come out with one each year. It would just be nuts for me to put out just one or a couple on this list. And that was just the sheer fact, like when we jumped into those, like you could play with your friends. You had all those awesome jerseys growing up. They had all those cool ones, vintage looking jerseys and stuff like that. And the soundtracks were there, and the online gameplay got better as it goes. However, I will say that the more recent games have kind of slipped up, and they've kind of got kind of boring. They kind of got. I feel like they've got too simmy for me, like too much of a simulation. And I think I've also kind of just become like, I got to get this one because I got every single game since 2003. You know what I mean? Like it's like a collection now. So that was my 10. Um, Now number 2 or number 9, I should say, on my list here, I put NFL Streets 2
Ooh,
because
that's a
that
good one.
game, that's a good game. You had the customization with your teams. You could pick your players. You were able to run on the walls in that one.
Fantastic choice.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it was just such a
fantastic.
great game where you play with your buddies for hours and just lose track of time. It was just so much fun.
And everybody had their squad that they had to be in that game too. I remember I was
Exactly.
Minnesota Vikings with Dante Culpepper.
Yeah, and you're like thrown behind your back and stuff, making these unreal plays. It was just something, just such a great classic arcade style type of game. And I really liked that about it. It was more fun than, just sitting down there. I'm going to pick this play and this type of coverage. I'm going to, do an audible to this thing because this looks like they're going to do. You just pick the play and you just go out there and hope for the best. You throw a deep ball because they're probably going to catch it anyway because it's that type of game.
I need a res.
And then number 8, I put Lego Star Wars the video game on the PS2,
Nice.
Ooh,
1 through 3. That game was the first co-op game I think me and Ian really played together as grown up, and we just unlocked everything. You go through each level just destroying these boxes, building stuff, unlocking the next episodes. It was just so much fun. We played that for hours when we were kids each
Oh,
night
we
going
we
through it.
100% at that game when we were kids. Yeah, that
Yeah,
game was a blast.
that game was awesome. And I remember we would go through that. What would you call it? That main hub when you first come in the game when you can just
Oh,
tie. I guess.
it was Dex's Diner from
Yeah, that was so much
Dex's
episode
fun.
Diner.
for episode 2. Yeah.
We would load in and we would just start fighting each other like as different characters from the game. Just
Oh
it was
hell
just
yeah.
a overall good time popping that thing in.
Cool.
Great
All right,
choice.
I'm gonna go through mine now. So for number 10, I come in with Batman Arkham City.
Yeah, okay. I just finished the Arkham Knight and I really liked that. That was a good one.
Fantastic game. I think that Arkham
Mhm.
City is the best in the franchise for that. I mean, not only does it have some great story, but like the open world is amazing. That's another game that I 100% completed. Like I found everything, including every single little like Riddler trophy that you can get your hands on. Um,
I
absolutely
have
love
not
that
done
game.
that yet with Arkham Knight. I'm like,
I'm gonna be
there's just
honest,
so much.
it's not as enjoyable with Arkham Knight to do. I think Arkham City was just crafted a little better.
Okay.
Um, but no, it's a good game, good franchise. If you haven't played those games, do so. Even Arkham Origins, though even though it's a different developer, it's still a good game. Number 9 actually might shock y'all that it's this low on my list, but is Destiny, and not Destiny 2, just the first Destiny. Um,
Okay.
I
Hmm.
put hours, I mean hundreds and hundreds of hours, and maybe even like hundred of days into Destiny
Weeks.
1. Weeks, like
Yeah.
just that came out in a time where I was in college, where like if I wasn't with my now wife, then girlfriend, or with my friends. I was playing Destiny with my friends. This is honestly, I met Jazzy through there, met a bunch of people
Holla.
through there,
Hmm.
um, and I would absolutely pour the hours into that game again. The only drawback I would say is that it stopped me from experiencing other games, which is why I'm now diving back into my backlog to
Hmm.
play them.
I would
Um,
agree with that.
Totally fair.
and then my number 8 is probably one of the all-time greatest games, Skyrim. mine.
Ooh.
Honorable mention for me. It's close.
I was honestly debating just putting Elder Scrolls in general, but like I didn't play a lot of the other Elder Scrolls. I just played Oblivion and Skyrim. Both are fantastic games, but Skyrim's the pick. Another game I just poured endless amount of hours in while I was in college, and I've purchased it probably twice now, PS4 and PS3 version. So, but yeah, that's my number 8. Shane, do you want to swap back to you?
Yeah. Let's see. My number 7 would have to be the Ace Combat series, specifically 4, 5, and 0, because we're not going to talk about her Assault Horizon because that was a failure. I feel very strongly about that, and I'm happy to get into that with you at another time.
That's fair. You piqued my interest, so another time we will talk about it.
Yeah, Ace Combat. I remember every day getting out of school back when I lived in Philly, and I had borrowed Ace Combat 4 from my uncle because he had a PS2 and he played it. And Friday night, I would get home. I wouldn't do any homework. I wouldn't do anything. I would immediately just turn on my PlayStation and play hours of Ace Combat. And it was one of the first games where I would purposefully go back to all the missions and put them on the hardest difficulty just to see how good I could do.
Did you have a joystick?
I do now.
Okay, but you didn't then.
No. I was just on the controller, but when I first got access to the wonders of adult money, I did buy a joystick.
That's fair. What do you got next, buddy? What's your number 6?
Number 6, Golden Sun: The Lost Age.
Oh,
For the Game Boy Advance.
Golden Sun: The Lost Age is that's the second one. Golden Sun 2, right?
Yeah, that's the second one. That's the one that you got me.
Yeah, buddy.
I have replayed that game so many times, and I even have a little USB stick that I can plug into my computer that has a bunch of games on there, and the first game that I loaded up was Golden Sun 2.
It's an honorable mention for me. It's probably my favorite JRPG of all time.
Yeah,
It is a great choice.
And then my number 5, pairing with what you heard about Ace Combat, would have to be Microsoft Flight Sim. I put 100 and some hours into the not this newest one, but the one that came out before that. I think Microsoft Flight Sim 10 or whatever it's called. And I'm hoping to at some point trade in my S to get a newer Xbox so that I can play that.
I really do want to try that new one, so that makes sense. All right, Jez, why don't you hit us with your 7, 6, and 5?
Okay. So for me, number 7 is going to be the Civilization game series. Like the Sid Meier's Civilization, like Civilization 4 is the most recent game that I've played. But that's just something that I've played all throughout my childhood, where you get to choose your country, you start off in the Stone Age, and you just kind of evolve into the modern era, and everything that goes along with it. So that was always a great game that I liked to play back in the day. Going up to number 6, I would actually have to put God of War Ragnarok on there.
Ooh.
So it is a game that I am not even finished, and it is already like absolutely blown my expectations out of the water compared to the first game that they just put out.
I have to ask you, where are you in the story?
So currently, I think right now I just cleared out Valheim, and I have to go back to Syndra's house. Cleared out Valheim for the second time.
Okay, you're getting closer to the end of the game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, man, it might jump a couple spots by the time you're done that game. It's fantastic.
I had to make sure it was on the list, and it's like the whole God of War series is great, but just this one just completely exceeded my expectations. So and that's why I have it at number 6.
absolutely fair.
And then for me, number 5 is going to be Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Ooh.
It was a really, really hard battle between that and Majora's Mask. It was really hard between those two. But I feel like Breath of the Wild is just so good. I feel like it won that.
I can agree with that. And I'm really looking forward to the next one that comes out this year.
Is it made this year?
I think so. It's either like late spring, early summer.
I'm very excited.
Super excited. So good. So that was your 5. Zach, how about you, man? What do you got for 7?
All right, number 7, I got GTA 5. That was I would say that I'm not going to just label it as a PlayStation 3 version, but that's what I played it on when it first came out, and that was probably the first time I actually was like, all right, I'm gonna sit down here and play this game through, see what it's about, and it was just so much fun, and the characters were unbelievable, especially with I don't know if everyone here has played GTA 5, but you meet Trevor and you're like, holy crap, this guy's a lunatic. But it was just funny driving around in the cars and stuff like that. It was and unlocking the different guns and stuff. It was definitely a good play. I've not touched. We touched the online briefly, like in most recent months, and we all kind of agreed. It's personal opinion, didn't like it too much, but
Yeah,
but that's
GTA
okay.
Online is not GTA 5.
No. And that's okay, but it was definitely a good game. I enjoyed it when I played it. And I'm hoping that they come out with a new one soon. Get my hands on that and give that a try. Then on 6 I got Red Dead 1.
Red Dead Revolver, or Red Dead Redemption.
Red Dead Redemption, sorry, I'll be clear. Red Dead Redemption 1 with John Marston, the original. Playing that on the PlayStation 3 as well. That game was so much fun. The story was so great. The characters were great. Going down to Mexico on your horse, seeing all the open world factor played a huge role in that with the finding different loot and buying weapons and stuff like that, and building up relationships with the other, I guess, NPCs or people involved in the story. It was just such a good game. I loved it.
Felt like
It made you
ahead
feel
of its time.
Yeah, it really was. And I mean, like, all the little background music going on, you just feel such like a badass, like, while you're just killing all these enemies and blowing up things. And I think I played that game probably 2 or 3 times. Same for GTA. I played that about 2 or 3 times because I enjoyed it so much. Now, number 5, I played this probably in the last year and a half, and it was not the remastered version or the redone version, but it is Last of Us 1. And I loved this game. I loved going through different areas, looting, finding supplies, and that you fall in love with just the characters again. The story was phenomenal. There's a reason why it's on HBO Max right now, and I think it's going to do great just because of the story alone.
As a side note, we recently got HBO Max, and that was one of the first things where I was like, "Ooh, I can watch this now."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people who've played the game and you've seen the story, you know that show is going to be great. It was just such a good story. And I hope they make a Last of Us Part 2 for the HBO Max, and it's just as good as the game was for that.
I gotta watch that show.
You got to play the game.
I will say that's one game that I've always been unfortunate to say I haven't played yet.
Yeah, it's great. It was really great. It just like I was sitting there playing through it, and I was like, oh god, I don't want to progress. You know what I mean? Like, because you just want to just keep playing, and you don't want to see it end at all. At least that's how I felt.
Well, you might have convinced me to put that on my list for this year. I got a couple. Once I'm done Hogwarts Legacy, I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing with my gaming, but
Big one. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start. I got number 7 for me is actually The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. I think Wind Waker is easily my favorite Zelda game. I love the cartoony vibe, the shell shaded graphics, the Hyrule Ocean. It's just so unique. And then like the dungeon crafting, the dungeon in that game is just they're all really good. I mean, whether it's the Great Dooku Tree or the Hyrule Tower, I don't even think I'm saying it the right thing, but I just overall I thought that game was really good. I've probably beaten that like 2 or 3 times now at this point. And honestly, if they remaster it and put it on the Switch, I'm buying it like easily, no questions asked. Number 6 is specifically Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage for the PS1.
Oh my god.
Spyro is probably one of my staples growing up, and I've 100% completed Spyro 2, and I've probably done
That's
it 2 or
impressive.
3 times. I'm gonna be honest, I actually beat that game not when I was a kid, but when I replayed it on the PS3. Like I bought it and downloaded it because you could buy PS1 games on the PS3, and I sat there one sitting, early ass morning to late at night. I beat the whole thing 100%, nothing left to do in the game.
Wow.
Jeez.
Well,
That is very impressive.
Being Ian's brother, I would believe it actually. So. 'Cause I just remember him playing that a lot too. Like I'd walk in our room or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, he's playing Spyro.
yeah, I could.
It was usually Spyro or it was Kingdom Hearts when that.
Yeah, that's fair. And then number number 5 is a game we've all played, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love the first game. Don't get me wrong, but something about Arthur Morgan though that it just.
He's such a great character.
Oh, I just went down at the buy station. Hold on, self-reviving.
I'm ready.
He is. Oh, okay. He is such an amazing character. And like I like Red Dead Online as well, but like that game online has nothing on the main story. Like if
Yeah. I agree.
if someone told me like you could experience Red Dead 2 for the first time again, but you'll never be able to play Red Dead Online, I'd be fine with that.
That's fair. I can totally understand that.
Yeah, that was my number 5. So, Shane, if you want to break us into the
Just
number 4.
one thing to add to your Arthur Morgan thing. I felt like as soon as that game ended, spoilers if anyone is going to play it, you end up as John Marston at the end. And it's just you just like, oh, I love John, but man, we're missing. No, I can't play as Arthur. What the hell? And I felt that like you're just like, and you love John because of the first game, but when the first game ends, you're like, wow, Jack is terrible. Why do we have to play as Jack? This is Jack shit. You don't even want you don't even finish the game basically if you play it again. You're like, no, we're just not gonna finish this. We're just gonna let it be here. But sorry, continue.
No worries. You want me to just go 4-1?
Yeah, you might as well.
Okay. So number 4 for me is going to be Kingdom Hearts 3. Primarily, it was because the hype around this game, in the community, was very high. We had to wait 12 years for it, which I'm still not going to forgive them for that.
In Azkaban?
Yes, we waited in Azkaban for this damn game.
Zach, this way.
The DLC content was nice. It actually expanded some character lore, which I was really happy about. I mean, I know the game has always been like a Sora-centric kind of thing, and like Melody of Memory expanded upon this too, but it's really giving life to some of the other characters, which is something that we've been asking for I don't know how long now. But I really enjoyed that. Number 3 is going to be Pokemon Violet, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I have Pokemon Scarlet, and it is the first Pokemon game I've ever played where I've completed the Pokedex.
Congrats.
Nice. You really collected them all.
I collected them all. Somebody had to take over Ash because he's not in the show anymore.
Ugh. That's just so disappointing.
I know.
It's like you watched Pokemon, Zach.
I know, but that's just so disappointing to hear, though. Like, I'm not gonna act like I know any. I'm not gonna act like I know anything about Pokemon currently. I just remember the original stuff, and I loved it. So.
Well, it honestly, as a side note, reminded me of like a TikTok video I saw recently. There was this creator who was like, you can't get rid of Ash in Pokemon, that's bullshit. And this person called up their friend, and the friend was like, I haven't watched Pokemon in 20 years, but they can't get rid of Ash, that's bullshit.
Fair enough.
Yeah. 2 is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I did not treat that as an Assassin's Creed game, and I completely understand the criticism that people are saying how it's not an Assassin's Creed game, because it isn't. You're not an assassin. I treated that game like a Viking sim, and that was the first game that I got a platinum trophy on the PlayStation.
Nice.
I went around and did everything that I possibly could. I went to higher level areas. As soon as I saw Norway in the beginning, I did not leave that entire area until I got everything that I could.
That's some grinding.
And then,
I love it.
Yeah, it was to me. It was worth it. Like the DLCs and stuff were kind of, but the base game by itself, I thought was amazing story-wise.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Honorable mentions. I'm gonna go Skyrim because no matter what system I have, I feel like I'm gonna come back to that game. When I first hooked up my PS5, I said to my wife, I was like, I have this high piece of technology, and she's like, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to play Skyrim. I just added more mods to it.
There you go. That works. That works.
I have Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep as another honorable mention just because it didn't quite fit in any slot, but I really enjoyed the side story of that one. You really got to see more of like the evil, more of the characters. The armor, I really wish they'd bring back. That was just hella cool. And then, of course, Goat Sim is which I'm playing right now. As a nice, relaxing game where you really don't have to do anything except just cause chaos and break physics, which is what I enjoy. Number 1, God of War Ragnarok.
Yes.
It is my all-time favorite game. Spoiler-free, because I know still working on it. The story is amazing. Every single thing that you can do, all the character interactions, like the side quests even feel connected, which is something I don't often get in games. Because normally when you're doing a side quest, from my experience at least, you're just doing it to gain EXP. With every single side quest I did and am still doing in God of War, it always feels like it's connected or ties itself back into the main theme.
I totally agree. And to quickly add something to that, the character play, other than playing as Kratos, like I was so excited to fight as Atreus, and the fact that he was so badass and so much fun to play as, really, like that game is just fantastic. It's so good.
Oh yeah. I am excited for you to play more, and I can't wait to hear what you think of it.
Look forward to reaching out.
Okay. Well, I think Jazz, I think that transitions to you, man. Let's get your last 4.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna throw a game that you already mentioned out there, and that is going to be Destiny. So like you said, like Destiny is actually how I got introduced to Ian, um, to Nick, how I met a lot of our good friends that we now see each other in the real world. But not only that, like to add on to what you said, we put so many hours into that game, so many. And I think that was the first game where I actually got a chance to like play with other people other than maybe just like one other person. It was the first game where I really took advantage of like the raid setting. So that game will always have like a piece of my heart. As much as I hate Destiny, I love them at the same time.
I gotta tell you, man, Destiny 2
I
really
feel
went
that.
down the shitter, man. Destiny
Uh,
1, like, they
Destiny
had it.
1 was just so perfect. The raids, like, we all can remember that exact same one.
Hmm.
The
And
first,
just 2 just fell short on everything.
I'm pretty sure the first time we met, we beat Vault of Glass.
That was the
So,
very first time I met you. Is a
yeah,
mutual friend of ours, Bob, was just like, "Hey, my friend Jazz is playing this game with me. Let's add him on." And that's how I met you
Shit, that's
guys
where I
and
met
beat
you
it my
too.
first time. Hmm.
you did meet on
Whoa.
Destiny. We played
It was
together.
Destiny.
It was
Oh,
Destiny.
it was Destiny.
That's funny. So yeah, that one would be my number 4. Jumping up to my number 3, another game that was already mentioned, and that is Kingdom Hearts 2. Like it was the perfect evolution from the original game, which was my childhood. So when the second game came out, it was just like I got the chance to relive that all over again. And then you get the surf on top of a key and all those. Oh my god, it was fantastic.
Hmm.
So, and
So
I
good.
am a huge like Final Fantasy fanboy, and you'll see that because that's coming up on my list soon. And the fact that it connects all of those characters as well with Disney, like that game I felt was made for me when I was a younger child. Like I was like, this is made for me. I love this. And then for number 2, I'm actually going to put Borderlands 2.
Ooh,
That is down to the cell graphics, the characters, the story that goes with it, all of the side quests. Like I am a sucker for a looter and shooter, and that is exactly what that game is. So that was probably the first game where after I beat it, I went back and beat it again, and then with every character. Like that was probably the first game where I've put that much time and effort into.
that's awesome. That's a
Yeah.
great game.
It is a fantastic game. I love the entire series, and but I think 2 was probably the most well done game. Like the DLC, everything that went with it, it was just so cohesive.
Best villain that I can
Oh
think of
yeah,
just off the top of my
Handsome
head.
Jack. He is by far one of the best villains you can ever fight in a game.
Absolutely.
And then for my number 1, it's gonna have to be Final Fantasy. So I could have made a list of just my top tens all being Final Fantasy games. So to just save it, I just put Final Fantasy series as my number 1. If I ultimately had to pick one, it would probably be 9. Only because Final Fantasy 9 was the first one where I beat entirely through, got 100%. And it kind of inspired me to go play all the other ones too and go back and beat them.
That's
But
impressive.
Final Fantasy
Nice.
9. Some honorable mentions for me. I was a huge fan of N64 back in the day. So Diddy Kong Racing was a
Ooh.
small obsession that I had, as well as another game called Quest 64. I'm not sure if anybody's heard that one.
I've never heard of Quest 64. I'm interested though.
No. So it's actually been so long since I play it. Like all I remember is there's like the 4 different elements. Like you have your water, fire, earth, and wind, and you basically had to go to every single one of those different. That's what I'm looking for. Like different enemy areas, and they would all have one of those elements as their influence, and you had to go and just beat them down, and then you finally went to the 5th element, which was the very end of the game. It was probably like the first like role play game I ever really tried,
Awesome.
and that's what really got me hooked.
So it had a nice influence on you. All right,
Mm,
Zachary.
mm.
Also
All
ready up,
right.
Zach, if you want.
Oh, I am sorry. I got distracted. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
All right.
Why don't you start talking about your top 4?
All right. So yeah. No, number 4, I got Tony Hawk Underground.
Ooh.
Yeah,
The best Tony Hawk
that
game.
Mm-hmm.
to me, in my opinion, that's the. I was just gonna say that it's the best Tony Hawk game. Not for the. It's a big factor, obviously, getting off your board. Everyone's wanted to do that before that. They're like, oh my god, I wish I could just get off my board here so I can go here.
Mm-hmm.
Soundtrack, amazing. I feel like every Tony Hawk game, for the most part, hit the soundtrack on the nose. It was um, the little story and the arcadiness to the story was great. You know, you're like, when am I ever going to do a McTwist over a helicopter in Hawaii, going like 3,000 feet in the air? Never. But this is great.
Yeah.
And the little, like, then of course you got those little goals in each level. It just each level was great too, with the uniqueness to it at the time for the time period. It was just such a fun game. Another one you can pop on with your and the secret levels. I can't forget about the secret levels. You can pick up secret mixtapes and that pay homage to the older games. And you also had the good old cheats if you want to put the cheats on and go super slow mo gravity wise and
Yeah.
just
Tony Hawk
perfect
Revenge
grind,
cheats.
all that stuff. It was just a good time. 3, I have what we're playing now, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, but I have the original.
Mm-hmm.
The original will forever be my favorite Call of Duty. I think it was my first one that I played the campaign. I played online. I love the guns. The story for the campaign was great. General Shepard, your DB, Ghost, RIP. Just it was just such a great game, and everybody like who grew up playing games in like through our time, I would say, as they would probably say that Call of Duty would, and they like the Call of Duty franchise. That game's probably their favorite, or it had to be like the top 2. There's no way you don't. Um, Number 2, I have Last of Us 2, Part 2. I just thought that game was so clean. Um, I had such a good time running through with it. Like Jazzy said, what did you say? Like you shoot and loot?
Loot it and
Yeah,
shoot it.
yeah. I love that. I love doing that. For some reason, I just like searching high and low, finding stuff. It's just such a good time. Um, the story was thorough, just like the first one. Obviously, it's a later game, so the graphics were better. Um, and the physics with it too. It just felt like a really good game. Um, if I had to have, I was gonna do honorable mentions, but now you guys are all doing. I feel like I gotta do one at least. Um,
Sure.
I would have to say, um, I would have to say Super Smash Brothers. Like we used to pop that in all the time and play for hours when we go over a buddy's house. Melee is probably my favorite, and then Brawl. Uh, we didn't own the one for the 64, but
We
we
played
had a
it
buddy
enough.
that did, and that was so much fun playing on that. It was so weird holding that controller. I will say that it was a little odd, but those games were fantastic. Even though I don't think I've ever beat anybody in that game, I don't think I could ever beat anybody. It was just the characters are awesome.
You were really good at Sonic.
Yeah, for oddly enough, I was
Oh,
good at Sonic and Brawl. Um, just speeding around people. Ian would be like, "Oh, you can't. We're not gonna have the what was it? The Smash Ball. We're not doing any items." And then I became an absolute turd. So that was I needed to have the items on to help me.
the Pokeball is still the best
Yeah,
item in that game.
Oh
yeah. That I
yeah.
think that
When
was
that
my
came
favorite
out,
item to use. Yeah. There's nothing more deflating when you throw the Pokeball and you get Goldeen.
mhm.
You're just
Oof.
like, oh great, thanks for the help. Um,
So what do you
oh,
got
and
for number
another
one?
honorable,
Oh, I'm
no,
sorry.
one more honorable mention. I would say Sly Cooper, the original Sly Cooper.
Oh,
Oh.
Oh man, I didn't even think of Sly Cooper. That's such a good game.
That's a fun game. That was definitely a fun game. I never played any of the other ones. Any of the installments. I've seen
Yeah,
gameplay for it. I'm like, I'm glad I never played it. But
that's fair.
definitely good. Number one, I have Red Dead 2. Red Dead Redemption 2. Uh, the game is just so beautiful. The scenery, the story, the customization that you can get in the shops. You can find secret weapons. The interaction between NPCs as you're walking around, they're trying to rob you. The creative ways they try to rob you, like they think you're like, oh, come help me. I need your help. But they're like, I'm just gonna take all your crap now. It's like that kind of stuff. It just made it so much fun. You had to be on your toes at all times. And then it hits you right in the feels. So at the end, and you're like, well, thanks, Rockstar.
Especially if you get a bad ending.
But yeah, that was the other thing. Yeah, you have the. Thank you for bringing that up. You have the honor, your good honor, your bad honor. There's times where you're like, well, I'm a cowboy. I want to play like a cowboy. But then there's times where you're like, well, I really want to have good honor, because I want to play this game. I want to have the best ending. So that game was so much fun, and you had the horses. You could find the exotic horses out in the wild, all the different breeds, stuff like that. That it just added to the game, and it was just perfect.
Fine detail. Yeah.
Yeah, again, I played that game like 3 or 4 times. So
Um. Well, my last pick was Red Dead 2, but now I'm moving to number 4, and it's one that Jazzy and Shane both have said. I'm picking Kingdom Hearts 2. Um, Another game that I probably 100 completed. I remember I used to just sit there after I beat the game and train up my forms because you had the Valor, the Wisdom, the Master form, um, and you would sit in like Mulan's level and you could like spam Heartless Train for the Wisdom form, and I would just do that. Um, I would I honestly could just kill like Heartless for ages. Um, and I was super excited at the end of the game when you finally got Riku back on your team. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was really cool.
The Edgelord.
Yes, yes. Or one of the best scenes of all video game of all time is in that final fight where like you're down and you have to start hitting square to block laser
Oh!
beams. And then you have to hit triangle to block the rest of the laser beams. So you have to hit both buttons, and it's just these red lasers shooting at you, and you're deflecting everything. Oh my god, I love that.
That, as a
PTSD.
side note, that game trained me in how to use a sidearm in Destiny.
Because you could just like trigger blast.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Kingdom Hearts prepared me for this. Let's go.
I've done my training.
Exactly. So number 3 is I'm going back to the first video game that I ever played back on the Sega Genesis, Sonic 2.
Ooh.
Easily,
Great game. Great
my
game.
love that game. And you know what? To this day, I've never gotten to beat the whole thing. I've gotten to the last level, but I've always died against Dr. Robotnik. I've never beaten it, and maybe one day I will. But oh, who unlocked the safe?
That would be I.
Okay. But yeah, man, I love it. That was a game my dad used to play with me, so that was kind of fun. Um, but then there was a point in time where he told me that Tails only got in the way, so then he would just play as Sonic, and I couldn't play as Tails. So it's like, oh, thanks, Dad.
Yeah, you used to make me play as Tails. Wait a second.
Well, it's the only way we could play together.
What do you mean? I could have played as Sonic one of those times.
You're lucky the controller was plugged in.
Oh, man.
I was just about to ask that.
Man, I don't even think it was plugged in, probably.
Um, so I'm gonna get to my number 2 now. My number 2 is God of War Ragnarok. Easily, it could have been number 1, but there is one other game that just holds a sweet spot in my heart. So I love God of War Ragnarok. And Zach, this is directed at you. Play God of War 2018. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
And then play Ragnarok. I promise you, it'll be one of your favorite games of all time.
Yeah. You're going to be excited to be a father after that.
Yeah, it's very much Data War.
It's very much Dad of War. Um, honorable mentions: uh, Ape Escape.
Oh, Ape
Wait,
Escape.
Yes.
one or like
One,
all?
well,
Is this okay?
one, but the rest are great too. But
Yeah.
one is my honorable
Monkey
mention.
soccer.
That was
Monkey soccer.
that was an Ape Escape too.
Yeah, that was great. That
But
was so much
the
fun.
mini games in that were freaking awesome.
Hmm.
Um,
That was the one with the skiing, wasn't it? There was like a
yes,
skiing.
skiing
Yeah,
mini game. Throw a
that was
couple
fun.
more in there. Super Smash Brothers, of course. Ghost of Tsushima. Spider
Ooh.
Man from 2018.
Spider-Man. Yes, absolutely.
Such a good game.
Not the
Um,
Tobey Maguire.
what?
Not the Tobey Maguire one. Spider-Man 2.
Oh, no, that one was also a really good one too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it
Oh,
was like, well, we're not talking about movies.
oh.
Um, Infamous 1 and 2. Harry Potter Quidditch. That game was
Oh,
Oh, I forgot
so
about that.
yeah.
such a good game.
Yeah.
A little game me and my buddies used to play all the time. Time Splitters 2. Such a
Good.
good game.
Also a good game. Don't.
A game none of us have mentioned. I'm kind of surprised.
Hmm.
Mario Kart.
Mario Kart is such a
Oh
good game.
wow.
Yeah.
You threw
On
in
the
the Diddy Kong
DS.
Racing
On
though,
the.
like
Diddy Kong Racing was just an absolute. It's what caused a lot of fights between me and my brothers growing up. That's for sure.
Dude, Mario Kart on the DS was such a good game. You just link up. You had a group of people together.
if Nick was
Did,
doing with us, it'd be in his. He absolutely
oh,
loved
I'm
Mario
sure.
Kart
Yeah.
DS.
Do you guys have a character that you had to be? Who's your number one go-to?
Hmm.
Todd,
Yoshi.
I feel like
Either
mine was
Boo or
Peach.
Luigi.
Yoshi guy.
yeah, Toad or Baby Mario.
Team
Oh
Peach
baby.
all day.
Team Pete, that's a good team to be on. I'm just gonna say. And then my number one is Pokemon Silver version.
Oh,
Great game.
Dude,
I can't
I
even fight that.
Pokemon Silver, the ability to go to 2 different regions, 16 badges.
Hmm.
Uh, I can't tell you the amount of hours that I poured into that game. Um, I even got I have it on my 3DS. I have I can't even say it's a fantastic game. My original silver version. I had my friend use a Game Shark to give me a Lugia because that's what kids
Hmm.
did, right? But the thing
Yeah.
is, it wasn't just give a Lugia; it was like change one of the Pokemon in your party to Lugia. So he does this, and he changes a Hoot Hoot in my party to Lugia. So like I had a Lugia named Hoot Hoot for the longest time. So that was, but yeah, that's my number one. I honestly like I said, God of War could have easily been number one, but like Pokemon, just I had to have at least one of them in there, and Silver is probably my favorite one of all time. So
That's fair. I am curious for everybody else. What was the first video game you ever played?
Mm,
Wow.
I would say Sonic with Ian.
yeah,
Okay.
Probably say Sonic with Ian. Yep, that's gotta be. Then probably Ape Escape with Ian.
Ooh. I
that's
think for me it was the original Mario on Nintendo.
Oh,
I think that was my first introductory to video games.
that's great introduction.
Hmm.
Mine was Star Fox on the Super Nintendo.
Oh,
Nice. That's a great introduction as well. Yeah.
I was thinking of another game, and I can't think. I got a brain fart, and it went away. God dang it.
Hold it in
Brain
there.
farts are evil.
We can talk about it another time. But I'm gonna wrap this up here, guys. I think we went through all our lists.
Yeah.
Great lists, by the way. Next time Al's on, I'm gonna pester him for some of his. I know that he was telling me his number one yesterday, but I'll let him tell y'all.
Oh, how did we not say Battlefront 2, like the
That's
original?
yeah.
Oh, man.
Great game.
Great game. Dang. He better have it. I bet Al has it.
He
I'm
might.
sure he does.
He's probably got every retro Star Wars game in order.
He probably has.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening. This was a bonus episode of Comic Book Wednesdays. Next week we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. We actually, like I said, if you're paying attention, we're finishing up Original Sin, which was really good. So we look forward to talking to Shane and Al about that. So again,
Definitely.
I'm Ian.
I'm Shane.
This is Jazzy and Zach, and thanks for listening. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, guys.
See you guys.
Peace.